there are people out there, like people who have made a lot of money, but they're teaching a strategy that doesn't work anymore. That's why they teach. You know, those who can't do teach. For me, I'm proud to teach with a strategy that I know still works. Cool. Well, thank you guys for having me. My name is Tim Sykes. I'm a stock trader, teacher. I have my own charity called Karmagawa, partnered with a photographer. His name is Matt Abad, and we travel around the world building schools, helping animals, trying to help the environment. I'm proud to now actually donate all my trading profits to charity, so I focus on teaching. I guess I'm famous for turning $12,000 into now over $7 million, trading evil penny stocks that everybody hates, going long sometimes, going short. You can actually short penny stocks, although I don't recommend it right now. Short selling, even though the markets are down, is a very crowded niche. So for me, I'm just trying my best to take singles. The way that I've turned 12K into over 7 million, my average trading profit is roughly $2,000. I let like the best plays come to me. I'm not trading every second, every minute, every hour. There's a lot of nuances with penny stocks specifically, waiting for the best pumps, waiting for the best scams to come about. But now I've been doing this 23 years. So this presentation is basically the 23 top lessons that I've learned over the past 23 years. And I think, how old are you guys? Are you 22, 21? 20? Would have been better if you were 23, but it's okay. You'll get there. And, I got started trading senior year of high school, made nearly $1 million as a freshman in college, Tufts University, transferred down to Tulane University in New Orleans, which enhanced my drinking, but decreased my education. But I was actually a philosophy major. I was trading all day, learning about, different strategies, taking night classes with ESL students, crazy college experience, but just gradually found my way. And now that I teach, because frankly, most people who teach in finance are scams. I don't know, raise your hand if you ever heard the term snake oil salesman. Never heard of snake oil salesman? One person, okay. Most people who teach in finance outside of Wall Street, but like people online, like, oh, I'll teach you to make $1 million. They're full of crap. I got into teaching because I was like, wait a minute, I actually did this. I made nearly $2 million before I graduated college. Let me just teach the intricacies. And now I've been teaching, just passed actually my 30th millionaire student this year, which is crazy. It takes time. I've been teaching for over a decade. But I just want to give, the 23 tips that I think you guys should hear to kind of keep you on the right track, no matter what you do. I doubt many of you will trade penny stocks, if any, but there's so many different asset classes. There's so much opportunity. There's so much money in the markets these days, even with, a very difficult market environment lately. So I think as long as you, are flexible and stay open-minded to the opportunities, I think it's going to be pretty amazing. Tip number 1 is dream big. A lot of people don't think that you can, turn a few thousand into several million, especially anytime soon. You can. It takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. I don't believe in hodling on any asset. But I do think that, if you really start to focus on if you have a few $100s or a few $1,000s, how do you actually grow that exponentially? How do you compound that to make meaningful, life-changing money? And also, if you look at studies, some people say oh, why do you always focus on, $1 million? Like you follow me on social media, I always talk about $1 million. Having a big dream increases your daily performance 15 to 25% on average. This is what studies have shown because, frankly, it gets you thinking bigger, and then you take all the little steps necessary to get to that big goal. A lot of people say, oh, I only want to, try to make $1,000. No, try to make $1 million over time. There's a lot of different ways to make $1,000 on Wall Street. Almost all of it is just speculative crap. And if you focus on these small goals, you probably won't reach your big goals. Number 2, start small, okay? I was talking about this before the speech. 90% of traders lose. Statistics are terrible. Like if the E-Trade baby were an accurate representation of trading, the E-Trade baby wouldn't be like dancing. He would be bloodied, he would be black and blue, it would have to be blurred out, or he wouldn't even make it onto TV, right? Stats are ugly. So recognize that the stats are ugly. Don't be scared off. 90% of small businesses fail too. Should you not start a small business? But if you recognize that most people are losing trading, it's going to take time. The best lessons are counterintuitive. They might take 1, 2, 3, 4 years. Like a lot of the best lessons that I learned took so many years. start small. And that way you won't lose that much in the beginning. It won't harm you. I have a lot of people who come to me and they start big and they're like, oh, I got this. Trading is going to be so easy, right? You know exactly.
Well,
it's fine. Listen, a lot of people think that it's going to be easy. Trust me, there's so many just grenades and mines. It's like a battlefield. Starting small protects you. Number 3, it's toughest at the beginning. A lot of people are scared to start trading or investing or even getting into finance. People don't like, thinking about numbers or math or money. They want to give their money to somebody else, like an expert. Experts are getting crushed along with everybody else this year. So I think that it's very difficult when you're first learning anything new, but specifically trading, investing, the stock market, because it is so counterintuitive and you're not going to understand that it's not an exact science in the beginning. Like if you take a mathematics class, right, 5 plus 7 always equals 12. But in the stock market, depending on the action, depending on inflation and a whole bunch of other indicators, 5 plus 7 might equal 15 in 1 year. 2021 was a crazy year for manias, for bubbles. And a lot of, even the worst companies and the worst cryptos and NFTs were all spiking so much. Rules didn't matter. But if you take 2020 or 2021 strategies into 2022, you get annihilated. So you really have to be willing to adapt. Number 4, a fool and his money are soon parted. This is a famous saying. Like I said, a lot of people made a lot of money in 2020 and 2021, but a lot of that was just bubble money. And most people, especially people who held all the way down with cryptos, with NFTs, they don't cut losses. They just keep hodling, and they lose their money. They lose their investment. So you really have to understand there's so many ways to lose money and just a few ways to make a lot. Most people lose. This is, just academic study after academic study. So you don't want to be a fool parted with your money. If you do make money, understand that you're very lucky, you're fortunate, and you don't want to lose it. You really have to think how not to lose your money. Not just how do I make millions, how do I make billions? Some people make some money and then they get greedy, right? They're like, oh, I made all this. They don't necessarily understand that maybe the way they made their money in 2020 or 2021 was just because they were in the right place at the right time. They think the world is different, everything's going to change. The 4 most expensive words in the English language, this time it's different. It's rarely different, especially as we've seen in the past year. Number 5, compounding really makes trading amazing. I always say start small. My top student has turned 1,500 into 15 million in the past decade. It didn't happen overnight. His first year, he made nothing. His second year, he made a few thousand. Third year, fourth year were his bigger years. But if you learn a process, let's say I like to buy earnings winners, just small cap companies, micro cap companies that report good earnings. Because they're underfollowed, they tend to spike on day 2, day 3, day 4, not just on day 1. Bigger companies, everyone follows Amazon, everyone follows Tesla, Amazon. It's very difficult to trade those because there's so much competition. With small caps and micro caps, not as much competition. Good news takes days, sometimes weeks to spread. And if you learn a proper strategy, trading small, like I say, with 500 shares, 1,000 shares, you learn which strategies are best for you. You can take the same exact trade later on with 10,000 shares or 50,000 shares. And there are scalability issues with small caps and micro caps. You can't necessarily take 1 million shares. Number 6, start now, not later. Again, so many people make so many excuses oh, I have to go to college first, then I'll get into investing. I got to do this first, then I'll learn. Start learning immediately. Learning is not an easy process, and every day something else is happening, whether we're talking about Russia, whether we're talking about, inflation, whether we're talking about equity markets or bonds or Credit Suisse potentially blowing up. There's so many moving pieces, and the sooner you start following that, not necessarily trading on it, not necessarily investing in it, but just paying attention, the sooner you start to build your education, that will be your foundation off which you can grow later on. I'm young, but I have 2 decades of experience, which is crazy to most people. They're like, wow, you got started young? Yeah, you can learn everything on the internet, okay? I'm sorry to, colleges, but this is an amazing time in history where you can learn every single thing that you need online. I've met so many incredible people, millionaires, who have learned everything from YouTube videos. They've learned their skill set from YouTube. It's mind-boggling, and this wasn't available a few years, let alone a few decades ago. Number 7, is not just about growing your brokerage account. A lot of people think how do I grow my brokerage account? I want to grow this. You actually have 3 accounts, I believe. You have your brokerage account with money in it, but you also have your knowledge account and your experience account. Everybody wants to grow their brokerage account, but they don't necessarily understand, oh wait, you need knowledge first. You need strategy. You need an edge. How do you get that edge? You try out different strategies, whether you're into day trading like me, whether you're into longer term investing, whether you're into swing trading, whether you like Forex. There's so many different ways that you can learn, but the key is that you learn, you get your knowledge account up, you get your experience account up, then you can have edge on every single trade. If a random person who's never traded before sees a stock going up, maybe they want to buy it, I see the same stock, both of us are in the same position. Who do you think is going to do better? I've seen this pattern thousands of times before. This is their first trade. I have an advantage. Number 8, become an expert. Really, you get paid with your expertise over time. It doesn't matter what it is, right? For me, it's penny stocks. I'm probably the only penny stock trader who's lasted 2 decades. There's so many promoters who have been oh, we're amazing. There's been marijuana promoters. There's been crypto promoters. When I first started, there was Y2K promoters. They all disappear, go bankrupt, go to jail. I stick around because I'm realistic. I'm not always saying this is going to be amazing. This is the best new thing. I'm actually pretty cynical because I've seen so much. But because I've seen so much and now I have expertise in my niche, I have a pretty good following on YouTube, on Twitter, in my chat rooms, in the industry. I'm not always right. I lose roughly actually 30% of the time. But I'm honest about my mistakes. I talk about it openly, and you can see this is what I've done. I show actually every trade. A lot of people don't understand. Whoa, you turned 12,000 into 7 million. I don't believe you. Here's 20 years of trades. It's on my website. I show my income tax returns. I'm crazy like that. But if you become an expert and you can prove your expertise, there is so much value in that in terms of your income, in terms of just being happy in life and your confidence. Number 9, that leads into focus on what you love. Especially when you're younger, you have friends, you have parents, you have older people telling you this is the way of the world, this is what you should do. Screw that. The world is changing so much every day, every week, every month. You can do whatever you want. I know people all over the world who have the most amazing stories. I've been trading and traveling. I haven't even mentioned, I've been to over 130 countries while I've been doing this. That's the beauty of trading. If you follow me on social media, you'll see me holding up my laptop everywhere. It's like laptop lifestyle. But traveling everywhere, you meet so many people who have done the seemingly impossible. And one thing is in common with all of them. They all focus on what they love, whether it's selling Pokemon cards. I know a few millionaires who have done well in Pokemon. I put 100K into Pokemon. I was like, screw it, let me try. I only made 10K. I was out. I was like, this isn't for me. But I tried it. And then, with that money and then with some money from a fundraiser, we actually built a school in Bali. There's a Pokemon school out there. And the kids are they don't even know. We build schools in the middle of nowhere. But it literally says the Poke School on it. It's actually pretty cool. But you have to find what you love. And you really need to try a lot of stuff. You're not necessarily just going to say, hey, this is amazing. I was actually an economics major at first. I was bored. I was falling asleep in every class. I was like, this is terrible. I became a philosophy major, not because I loved it, not because, that was my passion, but because it kept me thinking. I knew it was actually very useful for me. And it's come in handy, where a lot of people on Wall Street are really in the same kind of circle of life all their life. They go to the Hamptons, they go to the same clubs, they drink their, vodka Red Bulls, they do other stuff too. But it's all very similar behavior on Wall Street. Being a philosopher, coming in with a different mindset really helped me, I think, have an edge. Number 10, study more. Over-prepare. I don't think that you can study enough. I used to get crap, I would ditch friends, I wouldn't go out. And they're like, come on, you're so boring. I was like, shut up, get out. I was focused on studying. And like I said, you can learn everything online. I didn't even have, videos when I first began learning. I was just trying to read every book. But now you have videos, you have amazing tools. This literally is the most exciting time in history to learn anything you want. And you have all of these new tools at your fingertips, but you got to put in the time. You can't learn everything. You can't become an expert if you half-ass it. That's why I'm saying you have to really focus on what you love. Because if you are going to be studying at 10 p.m., 11 p.m., midnight on a Friday night when all your friends are out, you better love what you do. You don't want to be like, oh, my mom wants me to study, so I have to study. That's not going to get you through. You're going to half-ass it. You're not going to really want it. Number 11, donate money and time early on. I wish someone had told me this. Now I donate all my trading profits to charity. I've built my business. Now I'm teaching. I'm fortunate enough to be able to do this. When I travel, some of my trips are just to get away. I went hiking in Switzerland a few weeks ago. It was beautiful. Highly recommend that. Internet everywhere. Good job, Switzerland. But now I'm also traveling for charity. I'm heading to Bali in 2 days to open 5 new schools. So for me, I love traveling, but I've also built in giving back. I love trading, but now I give back. And it's not just about money, right? Like you can donate your time. You can go volunteer at your local food bank. You can go help animals at your local animal rescue. Whatever gets you into giving back and keeping you humble, because we often tend to fall into this bubble, especially those of us, in New York or Miami or LA, and it's like this just wealth triangle. And if you get out of that and you see more of the world, it really keeps you humble. And I think that's very important. Number 12, be flexible. Okay? Try different strategies. Try different subject matter. Learn all that you can about everything and see what really gets you going. Early on in the beginning, I didn't know that I was going to be a teacher. I didn't know that I was going to be all focused on charity, but I listened to myself and I started gravitating, right? I had all the expensive cars. Like early on social media, I had like my Lambo, I had my Rolls Royce, I had the boats, I had the big houses, and I was bored. I was buying $20,000 tables in nightclubs, and I'm like, what am I doing with my life? I got into charity. I was open-minded enough to want to give back and change my life. Now, every trip that I go on, all the money that I make, because I donate probably too much compared to my income, which is fine, it really makes everything much more fulfilling. Number 13, money equals freedom. Okay? So many people are anti-money these days. Oh, it's so bad, the rich are... Stop, okay? Money is not the end-all, be-all, but it gives you freedom to do what you want. If you don't have money, I can't tell you how many people have jobs that they hate. They have to put food on the table, they have responsibilities, and their whole life is miserable. They can't wait for the weekend because every weekday sucks. They're like, I can't wait to clock out on a Friday afternoon. That's not a way to live. If you spend the majority of your life at your job and you hate your job, you're hating the majority of your life. If you build your own dream life, if you focus on becoming an expert, I know it's going to be tough. I'm not saying everyone's going to be a millionaire, but you move towards a life that you want. I don't look forward to the weekend. I look forward to every day because I built something now over time, and now I'm being rewarded for that. Number 14 is build your own dream life. It's actually pretty crazy where a lot of people don't realize this, but you're probably going to create millionaires yourselves. You might not be a teacher where, my sole goal is to create millionaires from scratch, but no matter what you do in life, you're going to create millionaires. The question is it going to be you or is it going to be somebody else? You might be slaving away at a job and your boss is taking all the credit for that hard work. The boss is living the great life. You're slaving away. You might get a 10 or 12% raise after a lot of good work. Is that fair? For me, I want to be rewarded for my hard work. I want to create millionaire status for myself, which I did. I want to help my family, which I did, move them down from Connecticut to Miami. Now my dad wears fluorescent Under Armour clothing on Miami Beach, and he thinks he's stylish, even though he's just a typical old Jew in Miami. That's beautiful. I gave him that because I became a millionaire, because I took care of my family, and I love that. You have to think, who are you going to take care of? Are you going to take care of yourself or somebody else? I know a lot of people who maybe they love their job or they're like, okay, I'm like the bitch at my job. I have to work my way up. But you're helping create wealth for other people while you're wasting your life away. Maybe I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not good in group settings like working with other people. But this is just my mentality. I want to help myself first and then help others. If you're on an airplane, you have to listen to the rules when the mask comes down. Put your mask on first, then you help others. If you're always helping other people with a mask, you might pass out and then no one's going to help you. So I do think you need to be a little selfish. Number 15, losses educate. I can't tell you how many losses I've had. So many. Some of them have been rather big. One of them has been painful, $1 million loss. It was the worst. I also made enemies with a magazine editor and they smeared it all over the press. So that was just extra salt in the wound. Best thing ever for me. I have never had $1 million loss since then, not even a $100,000 loss, because I remember how terrible that was. Think about your losses. It might not be monetary losses. Any mistakes that you make, any failures that you make, we tend to want to push that down and not think about it. Remember that. Remember every second, what did you do wrong? How did you get to that point? How can you learn from that to never do that again. Losses teach you what not to do. Your education actually isn't complete or even half complete until you have those losses. So don't be fearful of losses or mistakes or even failure. But also don't make enemies with magazine editors. That's just dumb. Number 16, appreciate the journey. It's really a marathon and not a sprint. It's all nice and well for me to say, oh, I turned 12,000 into 7 million. Look, I traveled the world. I got 30 millionaires. Everything's great. To get there, I had so many peaks and valleys. So many, not just the $1 million loss, not just the press. But I trade penny stocks. Like, people just think I'm a scam just when I say the word penny stocks. I'm used to it. My first millionaire student actually was my first hater. He wrote a blog post saying, Tim Sykes is full of BS. Went back and forth in the comments. He gave me a chance. Didn't become a millionaire overnight, but over time, we were in the right place at the right time, and I have a good strategy. Losses, you really have to appreciate that, because then if and when you do succeed, you are so much more fulfilled because you remember those tough times. If you make too much money too soon, you don't have proper perspective. All the people in 2020, 2021, oh, it's so easy, just buy any crypto, buy any NFT, everything's going up so much. Then you learn the hard lesson 2022. It doesn't always last. Number 17, self-sufficiency is key. I've said this a lot. I just gave a Miami conference to 300 of my top students 2 days ago. The sooner you can become self-sufficient, the better. I know we're tempted to give our money to other people to manage. I know this is like basically what Wall Street is. Like, give money to your broker, give money to your financial advisor. If you look at the stats, they don't do that well. Okay, I know many of us live busy lives, so it's tough to manage your own money, but I want to manage my own money. I don't trust anybody else. People can say that they're experts. You can say that you have a diversified portfolio. Bond funds are getting killed. Diversified portfolios are getting killed. This is the worst year ever for bond funds. Bond funds are supposed to be so safe. You're down over 20%. The 60-40 portfolio is getting crushed this year. Warren Buffett, fantastic, getting crushed this year. So not every year is all rosy, especially after such a huge run-up like we've had the past few years. Number 18, be real and honest. I think that you can tell a little bit just of how the way I talk, and if you follow me on social media, you'll see I get very real. I think that's really missing on social media in finance. A lot of people don't talk about their losses. I can't tell you how many startups, they talk endlessly when they're on their way up. They get funding, they have this amazing thing, then somehow they all disappear, and you never hear what happens, right? All the social media of all the startups, all the management, it just disappears. Oh, that didn't work out. But they don't talk about the downside. No one wants to talk about losses or mistakes because they think it makes them look weak or incompetent. On the contrary, talking about your losses openly. I wrote a whole book about my $1 million loss. I want everyone to know what I did wrong so that hopefully it can help you, and it serves as a good memory for me never to repeat that mistake. So just be real, especially in finance. Number 19, I'm basically a glorified history teacher. I'm a big believer in the past. I've read a lot of books. I've studied the past a lot. There's one book, Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. It's a few hundred years old, but it talks about the bubbles in France and past bubbles centuries ago. And because I read that book, even though I got started in the right time, 1998, 1999, I basically made $1 million by college freshman in 2000. I didn't lose that like everybody else lost in 2001, 2002, because I read that book. One book saved me. And I was like, oh my God, this is the same kind of bubble. And that also saved me in 2008. That also saved me in 2022. So studying the past is the key to your future. I know that's corny, but it's true. It might not be an exact science, but history does repeat. Bubbles do repeat. Crashes do repeat. Number 20, that said, ride the hype. Just don't believe it. There's a lot of haters with crypto, with penny stocks, with anything speculative, with NFTs, but you can still ride the hype. You just don't have to believe it. I wish I had given into the hype on NFTs earlier. I was one of the haters. I was like, this is so stupid. This is ridiculous. And I watched my friends make tens of thousands. A few of them even made hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars, and they cashed out. Because I think if you combine trading, where it's like, okay, a profit is not a profit until you take it, with the momentum of the whole trend, they did very well. Even though all the NFTs did eventually crash. So you might be a hater of some of these trends and some of this hype, but you can still ride it for a little bit and take solid profits. It's actually better to ride the hype for a month, for a year, whatever your time frame, because that is when you can really make serious money. If you're just boring, diversified, boring long-term investments, you're not going to have huge exponential gains anytime soon. And I know everyone has been rewarded over the past century. There's a great book called Triumph of the Optimists, where the case may be we've had the best century in human history for investing. Will the next century be that good? Probably not. Number 21, expect the worst. You really have to be cynical in this industry. So many people will talk up an investment, their strategy, this opportunity, this and that. In my experience, not everyone fails, but again, industry stats show that 90% of traders lose, 70% of investors fail to beat the S&P 500 every year, which is up a lousy 8 to 10%, not to mention this year where it's down over 25%. Expect the worst. Literally be cynical. And I know that's not a fun way to be, but if you can be cynical, there's only upside. If you're saying, okay, here's all the reasons why this is going to fail, but maybe you go in expecting the worst, but maybe you're pleasantly surprised. And that way you can actually kind of be overprotective, and I think that's very helpful. Number 22, build your social media, okay? This is so huge. I've been crazy about just uploading all my thoughts, videos, tweets. I need to get on TikTok. This video is basically for TikTok. I only have imposters on my TikTok right now. But you should get your thoughts out there and start building a social profile. It just amplifies who you are. It just shows everything, your entire journey. It's actually kind of cool. You know, when I'm thinking about hiring an employee, I go back and look through their journey. I want to see who they are, what they've been through. Again, this goes with people who have failures as startups or failures in any sense, and they don't share it publicly because they're embarrassed. That usually leads me to think, wait a minute, what if they fail again? You just won't hear about it. They think that people don't know. If you share everything openly on social media, people know and you get rewarded for being brave, especially about your mistakes since it's so rare. And number 23, trade scared. You know, I trade penny stocks, I trade these speculative assets, but I do think that if you trade scared, trading isn't so scary. I trade such volatile assets, but I trade them like such a coward. I cut my losses at like 2, 3, 4%. I don't let my losses run. I don't let small mistakes turn into potential disasters. My average profit is 10, 15, 20%. Even if the stock is spiking 100, 200%, I say no. I know that singles add up. I know that, you know, these stocks, especially low price stocks, penny stocks, can move so much. Because I'm always thinking, I'm expecting the worst. What am I going to do wrong? Especially if I have a big size, it can get very bad very quickly. It's a very slippery slope if you trade in a cocky way. There's a saying, you know, if you ever get too cocky, the market will humble you. And I've seen this happen to so many traders and investors over the years. So these are some of my tips over the past basically quarter of century, which is crazy to say, in the stock market, but I hope they can help you. And I'll take some questions. Yeah.
First, I'd like to clarify about my comment that stock market is easy. Well, I personally only invest in indexes, don't have time to day trade.
Yeah.
So S&P index, I feel like, has given me great returns over the, like, I've been investing since a really young age.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I'm in the United States. Actually, the stock market is sponsoring my education.
Nice.
But I have a question for you.
Sure.
So, do you maintain a journal, perhaps, about your mistakes that you've made?
So I journal my mistakes. I have books. I have video lessons. I have 8,000 video lessons on my website. So every trade, good trade, bad trade, small trade in between, I try to show it. Not just the monetary gains or losses, but like, what did I do wrong? Like sometimes I think a trade is going to be so perfect and I just miss an indicator. I miss something. So I want to show that. This is the beauty of being a teacher. And I think that's very useful to journal your own successes and mistakes. And this is social media too. You can journal it however you want. You know, you can write it down. You can make a video. You can do, you know, pictures, whatever gets you going. But consistency is key, right? So it's like either you do it like once a week. My top students, I shared a house with them a few weeks ago, and I was like, I wake up late on a Saturday. I'm like exhausted. And we're in this big house, and I get up at like 10 a.m., and they were all at the kitchen table, and they were all journaling their weekly trades, and they were up for like 3 hours, and I was like, so that's good. Yeah, question?
Yeah, I have a quick question. Where do you do all of your trading? Like, you say like, okay, get invested soon. Like, what do you recommend? My mom's like, you should invest in Fidelity. I'm like, that's not it. I don't want to, like, where Robinhood, E-Trade.
So I use E-Trade. I use E-Trade and Interactive Brokers. You know, I don't try to make it too fancy. I think that the fancy solutions, and there's all these specialized brokers and specialized tools, I think it gets lost. You know, I believe in KISS, keep it simple, stupid. You know, I'm looking for like the best plays. My best play of the year was on EVFM. It's a female contraceptive play when Roe v. Wade got overturned. I'm thinking this is, you know, personally I think that's terrible, but it doesn't really matter for trading. purposes, EVFM is in the right space, right product. So I bought it on a Friday. The news, social media went crazy over the weekend. I sold it on Monday. I doubled my money. It actually quadrupled. But just big picture ideas like that tends to work best. Obviously, that happens very rarely. But if you can think big picture trades, you'll be pretty well off. Yeah, question back.
Yes, I'd like to follow up to number 6, I believe.
Yeah.
Regarding the research that you do.
Okay.
So what would you recommend as a good source? I use Zero Hedge, Market Watch, Market Square.
Zero Hedge is good. You know, it's really cynical. It's really kind of twisted. I like it. I'm entertained by them too. You know, really just everybody. Like you'll find a lot of different tweets start getting, you know, retweeted a lot and shared. I'm a big believer in charts. You know, there's a guy named, Charlie Bellio? I don't even know. He's just on my Twitter feed. I look at my Twitter feed all the time, but he's sharing charts from the past and giving, you know, just different ways of thinking, perspective. You know, a lot of people get lost, you know, in the headlines, the anger of the situation, especially politically speaking lately. You got to have the right perspective. So the more that you read, the better. I mean, I would read a ton of books. Like there's so many Wall Street books written over the past few decades and centuries. I'm a big believer in Jesse Livermore. You know, Reminiscences of a Stock Operator is one of my favorite books, even though you can learn from him because he actually went too big, went broke, and committed suicide, even though he's one of the best traders of all time. So if one of the best traders of all time screwed up, then you know discipline is important. Any other questions? Yeah.
So going back to books, so I've read The Intelligent Investor.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
So one of the key points Benjamin Graham makes is that strategy works until it doesn't. So I'm naturally skeptical when you're like trying to say you have this great strategy that it has worked for so long. So has your strategy changed, or has it mostly remained the same?
Great question. So I hope to get into teaching. I hope to destroy my strategy. I was like, let me teach all these idiots, all these degenerates, get them learning about penny stocks, and then I'll destroy the patterns that have made me wealthy, and I'll probably get wealthy by teaching them. I did get wealthier by teaching them. I was right about that, but the patterns haven't changed. They've increased because I brought a lot more liquidity, volatility to the strategy, into the market. The interesting thing is, though, I used to short sell a lot of scams. I used to bet against them. Because I had success, my early students had success on betting against the scams, there's so many short sellers these days. So it hasn't died, but it's changed. So now, with a lot of these scams, the short squeezes are crazy because there's too many short sellers. So it's kind of like, you know, I picture like oil, right? Like if you try to blot out oil, it just creates new little bubbles. Like if there's one giant oil bubble, I don't know if you've ever done this at an Italian food restaurant, and there's like olive oil, you get tired, you play with your food, that's me, right? You try to blot the oil, it doesn't go away, it just creates lots of new bubbles. So this is what's happened with penny stocks. So now I don't even really short sell anymore. Even though there are scams, even though there are pump and dumps, I'm going long them because there's too many shorts. So it's created a new pattern. I actually hoped that I could destroy the patterns. I missed my college graduation for a trade. I'm that much of an addict. I regret that. You only get one college graduation. Don't miss your college graduation. I made $12,000. It's still not worth it. I wish I could get that back. They called my name twice in the hot sun. My grandmother, my parents are waiting. Can't get that back. Go to your college graduation.
Well, you can attend our college graduation if you want.
I'm okay, but thank you. But thank you for having me. I hope this has been helpful. You know, you guys all have such bright futures. The fact that you're even studying this, if you stay open-minded enough and if you stick with it, there's going to be better markets, up and down, but the sooner you start to become an expert, the sooner you really fine-tune what you like and what you don't like or what you're good at, what are your strengths and weaknesses, the better off you'll be in the coming years.